As many of you know, I do not often comment on US politics, and the reason for that is that I do not know much about it. And the more you talk about a topic you know little about, the more likely you are to make a fool out of yourself. Sadly, not everyone seems to be aware of that simple fact.
The Brexit vote was driven by angry, less educated, older white voters who feel screwed by globalization and the establishment and have been fed a chip buddy of xenophobia slathered in slogan sauce.
Oh, I cannot wait to see the evidence for that claim. Oh, I see, it is just a random interview with some guy you picked off from some TV station, rather than actually bothering going through the campaign manifestos or even observing the debates taking place throughout this campaign. The idea that the Brexit campaign was run on nothing more than xenophobia is purely ridiculous. You even go so far as to make this statement.
Now, with Cameron choosing not to preside over England's countrywide reenactment of V for Vendetta, the likeliest successor is former London Mayor and Europhobe Boris Johnson, a dignified and capable statesman seen here demonstrating how immigrants might sneak past England's beloved borders. He also called Obama a Kenyan. Basically, he's Trump with his hair on backwards.
Let me just counter that with a statement by the man himself.
And let me take on this issue absolutely directly, because I am pro-immigration, my friends. I'm the proud descendant of Turkish immigrants. And let me stun you, perhaps, by saying that I will go further. I'm not only pro-immigration, I'm pro-immigrants, and I am in favour of an amnesty for illegal immigrants who have been here for more than 12 years, unable to contribute to this economy, unable to pay taxes, unable to take proper part in society. And I'll tell you why. Because it is the humane thing to do, it is the economically rational thing to do, and it means taking back control of a system that is at the moment completely out of control.
The idea that the campaign to leave the European Union was driven solely by the issue of immigration is absolutely untrue. This was not a single-issue election, neither was it driven by the fringe right. A simple look at the past parliamentary elections in the UK very clearly shows that people who voted Labour must have voted for Brexit for it to have succeeded. Especially when considering that Northern England, which is a traditionally left-wing stronghold, voted for Brexit. In its political past, prominent political figures from across the entire board of UK political landscape, ranging from Enoch Paul to Tony Benn, have made their opposition to the European Union clear. More importantly, in case you don't know, the right as well as the Conservatives are not alone in their Euroscepticism, which goes beyond the political field to parties all across Europe in the left. Spain's Podemos, Germany's Die Linke, Italy's Pepe Grillo and his political movement, as well as the before-mentioned Tony Benn in the UK and his segment within the Labour Party. But even more amusing is the statement you make here.
But back to the hopeful stuff. The United Kingdom is 87% white. It's like if the Country Music Awards were an actual country.
Apparently the problem the UK has, according to you, is that there are too many white people. That being white, apparently, at least according to this twat, automatically comes with being racist. Any of the actual issues are completely irrelevant to this moron. May I introduce to you Alexis Tsipras, probably the most left-wing democratically elected leader of a European nation since the 1960s, who after the European Union, the European Central Bank and the representatives of lender countries and the IMF imposed murderous austerity measures that completely crippled Greece, socially and economically, with massive unemployment and social strife as a consequence, as well as the re-establishment of a fascist political movement in a European political sphere for the first time since the 1970s, decided to hold a referendum on austerity, asking the people of Greece if they wanted to continue this program and its crippling effects, and the people of Greece overwhelmingly said no. Now you dumb fuck, maybe you don't know this, but in a democracy, once the outcome is here, it doesn't matter what your political position is. It doesn't matter if you would favour a austerity approach or if you supported the Prime Minister's Keynesian approach, because in a democracy, you make your case. You make it on an open platform and then leave it for the people to decide. And no matter what your position may have been and whatsoever you choose to support, when you lose an election, there's only one dignified thing left to do. You shake your opponent's hand, congratulate them, and then continue to do your civic duty in opposition. Here, however, is what you don't do. You do not simply overrule the democratic decision made by the people to impose your will upon them, no matter how well meant you believe it to be. In a democracy, you talk with people and not down to people. The European Union, which was founded by de Gaulle and Adenauer as an institution to end the German-French Erbfeindschaft and to prevent any future squabbles over enforcing the will of a leader against the people's will upon other nations, the thing that has so plagued Europe throughout the 19th century and turned it into a blood-soaked continent, that European Union has turned into doing the very things that it was intended to prevent. You know, there is a stereotype floating around our continent that most Americans are silly buffoons who know nothing about this continent, its cultures, let alone its politics, a stereotype reinforced during the Iraq War, and which is mainly centered around conservative Americans for some reason. I would say people like you are evidence for the fact that this just as well applies to people from the American left. It is one thing that you have in common with someone like Dick Cheney. You have no fucking clue how the world works beyond your nation's borders, which in itself isn't a bad thing. The thing, however, which makes you both morons is that you don't even bother to check and research the realities on the ground before making your vapid, false and empty statements. Statements like this one, for example.
But back to the hopeful stuff. The United Kingdom is 87% white. It's like if the Country Music Awards were an actual country. America is far more multiracial, and that's important because if America were as white as Britain, we'd be in trouble come November. Brexit vote was driven by angry, less educated, older white voters who feel screwed by globalization and the establishment and have been fed a chip buddy of xenophobia slathered in slogan sauce.
Let tell you something that should be blatantly obvious to anyone with even 2 brain cells capable of grinding together within a skull to produce something resembling a coherent thought. We are not America. Your political historical struggles are different from ours. The UK abolished slavery over 100 years before you did. At the same time you were fighting a war over slavery, we introduced socialised healthcare in Germany. And my grandfather didn't own slaves. He bombed London. And the European Union is not the bright, glorious beacon of freedom that you paint it to be. In fact, quite the opposite.